Hey guys, what's going on? The Bookmines have been really good to me recently. Got a lot of vintage sci-fi, got a lot of rare gems that I just want to share with you. So I'm going to call this first one a ruby, a bright shiny ruby. Actually, it's kind of a dull ruby, it's a little worn. Prime Stranger Things era Dungeon Master's Guide. This is what you want to see when you walk into a thrift store. This was a great find. And it's surprising because based on the sticker, which I have removed, I said that in a previous video, I was keeping the stickers on for transparency's sake, but transparency is ugly. No one wants to see a big ugly sticker on the front of this book, so I took it off. But the sticker tells you when it was put out in the thrift store, and this had been sitting there for like 5 days. And I'm really not sure how, because there's plenty of other people doing the same thing I'm doing. Going to the thrift store, some of them 2 times a day, to see what the tide brings in. It was destined for me, or whatever, but in any case, beautiful book. Beautiful, bright, shiny ruby. Here's a science fiction edition I haven't seen before. We got The Star Is My Destination by Alfred Bester, which I have on my TBR, a more traditional vintage paperback, but I haven't seen this design before. I also have Psycho Shop by Alfred Bester and Roger Zelazny, a book I haven't heard of, in an edition I haven't heard of. And I am intrigued by the cover, definitely 90s. It reminds me a lot of this older Philip K. Dick edition. Here we got The World Jones made. I do prefer the more modern ones, maybe just because those are the ones I'm currently collecting. I get that this encapsulates Dick pretty well. It's abstract, kind of bizarre. You're not exactly sure what you're looking at, but it's a little too scattered for my liking. It does have a Borders tag on the back though, that's nice. Borders tag bonus. And we also got The Divine Invasion. I found all of these from thrift stores and estate sales, and actually there was a few successful Facebook Marketplace deals, which is a rarity. Another Borders tag there. Hardcover anniversary edition for Neuromancer by William Gibson, a book well loved by many. I may need to revisit this. I don't have the greatest memories. I was mostly just confused. Maybe I was not focused enough when I was reading it. This is one worth giving another shot, I think. I got plenty of copies to choose from. A classic, The Forever War, Joe Haldeman. I just sold this on my eBay store, so perfect time to restock. Here we got some Le Guin. This is a random one-off copy of the second book in the Earthsea cycle. I haven't seen this edition before. I like to hold on to these and see if I can collect the whole series before I sell it, but my partial series shelf is getting pretty crowded, so I may need to sell some of these as one-offs. This edition, we got the Earthsea 2 and 3. This one's pretty common. I'm confident I'll find number 1, so these can sit on my series shelf for a little while. This one I'm not sure. I think this is the 4th book in the quintet. It's gonna be a while before I get the whole one, but I don't know if this one will sell by itself. And here we go, one of my favorite books to find in the wild, The Left-Handed Darkness. My favorite science fiction book of all time in this beautiful vintage copy, the edition I read long ago. Incredible book. Pretty divisive book though. I know a lot of people that not exactly a fan, but if you like it, you really like it. If it hits, it really hits. That's what I've found. Another good one by Le Guin, The Lathe of Heaven. This one is probably more universally palatable. It's short, it's got a good premise, it's got a good idea, and it's got a good moral. If you haven't read it, it's not much of a commitment to do so. Here's one I haven't heard of by Le Guin, The Eye of the Heron. Definitely going on my TBR. I always give Le Guin a chance. Although last time I tried to read a Le Guin, what was that book called? It was Lavinia. I tried to read Lavinia and it was just too fancy for me. It was too fantastical. I don't know, I didn't get into it. But I will give Le Guin endless chances. Every book she's ever read, I'm gonna try, if it comes my way. And as always with these book hauls, a lot of them are going on my eBay store. I will have the link in the description. And I'm thinking of trying to get some kind of like coupon down there for you guys watching. But more importantly, I want to pick out the ones I want for my TBR. I've got this constant stream of books coming through my house, and I need to pluck out the ones that I want to read. Like these. Here's an author I know absolutely nothing about, Stanislaw Lem. We got The Investigation, and I love the feel of these books. They're like paperbacks, but more substantial. We also got The Siberiad, which I have heard of recently. Fit to be Read did a video featuring this, and I hadn't heard about it. I wish I had known back when I was doing my Our Books Funny video. I definitely would have included it. But right now, I'm not sure I'm in the mood for a sci-fi comedy blend. We also have More Tales of Perks the Pilot, which for some reason reads to me as humor, but I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know anything about this guy. I want to add one of these to my TBR. I'm leaning towards the investigation, but as always, what do you guys think? Let me know. Every vintage sci-fi book haul needs to have a tribute to Dune, and here's a good one. The Worm Man himself, God Emperor of Dune. This will also go on my partial series shelf, which is definitely crammed with Dune stuff. I don't think either of these will complete a set, but we're always one book closer. Always one book closer. Another divisive book here, The Fall of Hyperion. I had Hyperion as number 10 on my top 10 list. And some people said, do not read the sequel, you will be disappointed. And others said the sequel was better than the original, which I guess is nothing new. That's pretty common when people are talking book opinions on the internet. But for some reason, this one seems like the two sides are just further apart than in other discussions. But, you know, what do you think? I should do a poll. Should I read the sequel or should I let Hyperion lie? Because I really did like Hyperion. All right, here we got some absolute classics. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells with this funky picture that I was having the hardest time figuring out what it was. And then I remembered, oh, they made a movie, and that's part of the movie, right. So this is a really old movie tie-in edition. Actually, it looks really old, but I was surprised to find that this is from 1980. Yeah, published 1980. It looks way older than that for some reason. Did not age well. We got Animal Farm, George Orwell. I always try to include this in some kind of a high school required reading lot, oftentimes with 1984, oftentimes with Fahrenheit 451, and oftentimes with Lord of the Flies, Brave New World. But I'm wondering, what are some other books I can include in those lots? Because I have a lot of 1984, I have a lot of Animal Farm, and I usually like to sell books in 3. I feel like that's a good number, 3. But also, I'm not about to sell these 3 as a lot because they're just not, they don't go together. Actually, they're all 3 different sizes. Nightmare. That's my issue. That's my own issue. You know what always cracks me up about these editions of Animal Farm in 1984? Is they all have this image of George Orwell that is just not very flattering. I know the technology probably wasn't there to have very detailed images, but man, they could have updated it. Even in the most modern ones, they have the same picture of the guy. It's not very flattering. Looks pretty grizzled. Here we got a beautiful book, both Animal Farm and 1984. Something about this book I'm really drawn to. I have no reason to keep it. I've read both of these multiple times. But it's just a beautiful book. Why shouldn't I keep it? Speaking of hoarding or collecting, I have another Year's Best anthology from Dozier. I think that's how you pronounce the guy's name. I own about 30 of these, and they're currently taking up the bottom 2 shelves of my main bookshelf, which is filling up rapidly with all the books I'm reading these days. So I need to purge, I think. I think I need to get rid of this collection, which is not fun. It's not something I want to do, but as a collector, I also need to declutter. It needs to be a cyclical thing. I can't just keep collecting. That doesn't work. That's not going to end well. So if I want to collect, I also need to let go so that I can continue to collect and can continue to let go. Has to be a give and take. I'm not going to use the word balance again in my video, but I guess there you go. I already did. Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. I keep finding this book in different editions. This one is like a military grade paperback, like thick cardstock. Prime old book smell. When's the technology going to come to have smells be delivered electronically? Soon, right? It's got to be soon. Okay, I won't make you wait any longer for the thumbnail book. If you've watched my other videos, you know I love Dinotopia. I loved it as a kid, I love it as an adult, and I didn't know that they had a 3rd book, The Journey to Chandara. I've described Dinotopia before as fancy Flintstones, and that's what it is. It's humans and dinosaurs living in the same environment, but it's a lot more grand than Flintstones. Like, look at this. I mean, you saw it in the thumbnail, but gorgeous stuff. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. James Gurney is a magician. I met him. The museum where my wife used to work had a science fiction exhibit, and he was there, and he was giving a little talk. They had one of his old works hanging on the wall, and he was looking at it, kind of like shaking his head, saying, man, I was such an amateur when I did this. It's kind of hard for me to look at it and not see all of the flaws in it. Which I understand. He seems just like a nice, normal dude, and he draws some of the best dinosaurs out there. Hard to argue with that. I didn't know this existed. Truly, I had no idea that there was another book in one of my favorite series. So, very excited to find this one. A diamond. A big, bright, beautiful diamond from the Bookmines, for sure. Alright, we got some more modern stuff here. Acceptance by Jeff Vandermeer. I read Annihilation, I absolutely loved it. I read Authority, the second one, and struggled through it. It took a massive U-turn. I never even read the third one, but it's almost a brand new book. It's beautiful. It'll probably sell by itself, so it won't take up space in my partial series shelf. We've got an Andy Weir 3-pack. The Andy Weir 3-pack, because I think he's only written 3 books. Project Hail Mary was the latest one I was looking for. And actually, it might go on my TBR. I got this big, cumbersome hardback version of it right now, but I do want to read this one. I somehow accumulated like 5 copies of The Martian, but they don't sell by themselves, so they need to be packaged like this. Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, which I just talked about in my last video. Really liked this book. I liked this book more than I realized after finishing it, which says a lot about a book, I think. I really love this cover. Merlin's Ring by H. Warner Munn. You got a fire-breathing swan, you got a knight in the background, and on the other side, you got Stonehenge. Can't get more fantasy than that. While we're taking a bit of a fantasy interlude here, I'm gonna call these emeralds. Emeralds from the Bookmine. We got the Dark Crystal graphic novel, brand new. It's got this like book crop top on the back. And if you don't know what the Dark Crystal is, it's a Jim Henson production featuring David Bowie. And that really should be all you need. All you need to know to want to see that movie. Beautiful artwork. Again, this is the exact thing you want to see at a thrift store. Brand new, niche market. And, you know, this is going to make some beautiful pictures for the listing. And furthermore, I not only have volume 1, I have volume 2 as well in a very similar condition. The crop top on this one is slightly mashed, but minor damage. And as you would imagine, it's got similar beautiful pictures. I'm going to try to have most of this stuff on the eBay store before I post this video. Again, I would love to have this in a big collection, but I'm not a big graphic novel guy, actually. But one of the few graphic novels I have read is Watchmen, which we got a beautiful new copy of right here. Last year I went on a bit of a kick. I read Watchmen, I read V for Vendetta, and I read a few others. But I think once again I made the mistake of starting on the mountaintop. I read what most would call the best graphic novels, and then I tried to read some other stuff, and it didn't really hit me the same. So I wonder if there's any novels that have the same kind of mystique as Watchmen or V for Vendetta. Perhaps this one here, we got pretty much a brand new edition of The Handmaid's Tale graphic novel. I did flip through this one, and they do it right. Big red theme. I will say, you're not going to be able to beat Aunt Lydia from the show. She nailed it. That was perfect performance. Just like you're not going to be able to beat Baron Harkonnen from the sci-fi original Dune miniseries. Ian McNeice. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Okay, maybe we're veering too far away from science fiction. We will get back to science fiction, don't worry. But maybe MC Escher? Is there a world where this guy's science fiction or fantasy? I think so. My brother had that poster of the castle with the weird architecture in his room. So I do have some fond memories of this kind of artwork. And I saw these books and I was drawn to them. It's a set here, and we got the infinite world of MC Escher with some typical interlocking fish, which I assume is his trademark. And I really like this picture of ants. For some reason, I was drawn to that when I was flipping through this book. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Okay, a few more fantasy here. The Atlas of Pern, which is one of these super detailed map books about a pre-existing fantasy world. This one is McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern world. And it gets pretty detailed in here with these maps. Looks like a battleground map and just the general geography map. You got to be pretty into the Dragon Riders of Pern to want this. But, you know, I would probably buy something like this for like the Dark Tower series or something that or Dinotopia, you know. So I have my own obsessions as well. The Book of Merlin by T.H. White. I don't know much about this, but again, the book just called to me, and I cannot resist the call of a book. I was expecting it to be kind of typical sword and sorcery stuff, but there's more ants. So I'm intrigued. What are these ants doing with Merlin? Magical ants? Has Merlin given these ants intelligence or something? I don't know, but I want to find out. So I gotta read the book, huh? I guess that makes sense. Okay, we got a nice hardcover first edition of The Lost World by Michael Crichton. A while ago, I found a first edition Jurassic Park. I think I made a video about it. And I went out and bought a first edition Lost World to have it be a set. So I guess I'm being optimistic in pre-buying The Lost World to wait for the next first edition Jurassic Park I find. Maybe too optimistic. We got a brand new copy of The Ministry of the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson, another author I know very little about. Whenever I see their books, they're usually huge like this one. I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that the spine here says it's science fiction, but the blurb on the front here says it's nonfiction. Also one of Obama's favorite books of the year. I'm really trying to figure out what that means, to be science fiction and nonfiction at the same time. I can't quite imagine what that would feel like, taste like. Here's kind of a random one. This one might be fantasy. The Illuminatus trilogy. For some reason, the front cover, the weird abstract landscape, and the dolphins make me think Hitchhiker's Guide. Is it like a comedy ha-ha thing? Also the fact that it has an exclamation mark in the title, but I don't know anything about it. Looked like something that someone would want, though, I guess. How to Survive a Robot Uprising. I'll admit, I only bought this one because it was shiny. It was calling on my younger reader self who was obsessed with shiny books, and look how shiny that is. You know, it's probably because I played a lot of card games when I was a kid, and you get the holographic card, and that was, you know, prime stuff, so I got the holographic book. We got a nice edition of Dawn by Octavia Butler, which is going straight on my TBR. I want to read more by Butler. I hear a lot of people talk about Dawn. Oftentimes with Butler, you get writing in the margins, like this one. So she must be prescribed for a lot of literature courses, maybe African American literature. But I don't mind it too much, especially this nice student whose handwriting is pretty small and unobtrusive. And it's nice to see someone else's opinions about it. I mean, I also want to form my own opinion without being influenced by theirs. But I think I've gotten pretty good at forming that wall between my opinion and other people's opinions so that it can still filter in, but doesn't completely dilute my own opinion. I like to think that, at least. I bought this book because I thought it would sell for reasons. Vampirella, Blood Invasion. It's also in pretty good condition otherwise. I might call that one an opal. An opal, I think. I love this edition of The Robots of Dawn. He has the same kind of formatting for Foundation and a lot of his novels, maybe all of his novels, but I've only seen a few. I did read this book, and as with Asimov's other stuff, the writing itself is kind of dull. To get through the story takes some work. But then, once you get to the end, it all comes together pretty perfectly, and he has this genius idea, and you're just kind of awestruck. That's the epitome of Nightfall, the famous short story. But a lot of his other stuff, too, I feel like, has the same kind of laborious middle to build up to this awesome climax, which isn't a bad thing, necessarily. Another Asimov, he often edits these short science fiction anthologies, like this one that has apparently 100 stories in it. And I've read a few of them, they're just not really to my taste. With stories this short, they just don't stick. My brain doesn't have enough to latch onto to really get invested or make memories or anything. But this is a nice little book. I think it's actually worth some amount of money. We got a pretty old edition of The Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. This was one of the first vintage science fiction books I read, and I gotta say I don't have very fond memories of it. I remember being confused. I remember it being pretty slow, convoluted. Probably worth another chance. I'll boil it down to my inexperience with the genre, but I'm not hungry to read some more Roger Zelazny. Childhood's End, Arthur C. Clarke. I do already have this on my TBR. Very excited to read that one. And here's an author I don't know anything about, Alistair Reynolds. We got Chasm City, which I think is somehow related to Revelation Space. But again, I don't know anything about them. I'm probably going to sell these together. Pretty good condition. This is a good feeling paperbacks. You know, I hear people talk about UK bindings, and that is, you know, kind of an embarrassing void in my book knowledge. I don't know what they're talking about with UK bindings, but certain books do just feel better than other books. So that's next on my list of knowledge to obtain. What is a UK binding? All right, and we're gonna cap it off here with some Tolkien. We got another full trilogy, plus Unfinished Tales. Just pretty nice and actually fits with this trilogy. I do need to have some kind of like Lord of the Rings sale on my eBay page because I have a lot of trilogies right now. Should probably try and get rid of some. We got Unfinished Tales in almost brand new condition. These always sell well, especially when they look as good as this one does. We got The Fall of Gondolin, a hardcover tertiary Tolkien tale, which sell even better. I'd be tempted to call this like a jade or something from the Bookmines. It's not as shiny as a sapphire, but it's nice. You're excited to find that. We've got 2 copies of The Return of the King in this edition, which maybe completes a set. No, not even close. Not even close, but as always, we are one book closer. And lastly, I'm going to call this one a Topaz from the Bookmines. This was part of the successful Facebook Marketplace deal where this guy had just inherited a bunch of books and he was trying to figure out what to do with them. And I was going through his totes and I found this one, a pretty old edition of Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, in okay condition. It's weird because the way that these were made, they all look horribly worn. But this one's not bad. It's okay. But it had this old insignia, which is what tipped me off. And when you're going through a bin of random books and you see the Two Towers, you kind of expect to find the others, the Fellowship of the Ring and the Return of the King and who knows what else. Unfortunately, all he had was the Two Towers, but still a bright, beautiful topaz. Still super excited to find it. Still got the map in here. I'm gonna risk opening this map to show you guys. It's pretty beautiful. And yeah, those are the gems I got for you today. As always, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, and one more thing, I have a P.O. box now. I needed to get it from my eBay store, so I'll put that in the description. Some people were asking me if they could send me books, and now you can. Thanks.